Hey guys, welcome back. As you can see, I am joined by a few friends, and more importantly, I am talking to Merv, and Merv is going to talk to us a little bit about hybrid fishing on Percy Priest Lake. And then after we get through talking about that, we're going to talk about navigating the north end, or Merv, would you call it north end by the dam? Is that the lower end of the lake by the dam? What do you call
Yes,
that?
sir. That is
Cool.
that's the north end and the lower end of the lake. Anything past the bridge is the lower end.
Cool. So as you can see here, I got a screenshot from your webpage. For those that don't know you, I'll let you introduce yourself before we kind of get into it.
Okay, I'm Merv Johnson, NashvilleFishingGuides.com. uh, Vietnam veteran, married happily, and live in Goodlettsville. Been guiding on the lake for about 8, 9 years now. And started out with crappie and bass, got bored with that, and I segued into the hybrids, and that's my forte now.
Nice. Merv, I know you're pretty active on social media, and that's why I really wanted to have you on today. It seems like you're able to really find some bait fish around Percy Priest and get on some hybrids. And so let me see what we got on this next screen. So yeah, um, I took some of these from your Facebook posts, and so let's kind of talk through the viewers what we're looking at here on the left, because I don't think people realize how hard it is to find bait fish and to catch these hybrids. And again, like you were talking about fishing earlier, everybody just sees like the end part, right? And no one sees the hard work that goes into it. And so those are some things that I kind of want you to highlight as we talk through some of these slides. So Merv, I'll turn it over to you to kind of talk about them.
Okay, my morning starts generally around 3 o'clock in the morning. Couple cups of coffee, out the door, gone by 3:30. Launch the boat by 4:15 by myself in the dark, obviously, and then I make a 8-minute run to YMCA Boat Dock Cove. That's where the bait is located right now, and you can go in there and load up. I drop a green light, and if some of my posts you'll see, I post when I first get there. There's nothing. I mean, the screen is almost empty. Drop the green light down. In 5 minutes, you've got bait fish. In 10 minutes, you've got a lot of bait fish. And in 15 minutes, the screen is covered with that green light. Now, my green light only goes about 6, 8 feet below the boat. And a lot of the bait that you see is new hatch. It's 2 inches, 1 inch. So I use a half-inch mesh net, deep hole net, and that lets a lot of these little guys go through so they don't get caught by the gills. You wind up killing them and winding up wasting your time getting them out of the net. What you're looking at right there, that is a screenshot of a lot of bait, and I don't know where that is. I'd have to get a blown up shot and see where it is. But go over to the YMCA at the end of Hole in the Wall Island. There's a white buoy right there, and you'll see a boat dock. And if you stay out in 21 foot of water, and we're talking, 4:15, 4:30 in the morning, the bait will be scattered. If you go in there after daylight, say 7:30, 8 o'clock, the bait will be on a thin band at about 18 feet, and you'll probably throw it up there in a minute. One of my screenshots of where you can see my deep hole net, a Betts, Betts, deep hole net, slowly sinking. Now this thing stays open. It's a 16-foot diameter net, and it stays open to about 12 feet all the way down. I don't care if you're in 15 foot of water or 30 foot of water. And yeah, I'll catch a couple hundred baits in one cast.
Yeah, and we
That's
actually
enough.
have some pictures of that. So if you're still with us, stay tuned for that. And I see our buddy Ken is on. And Ken, I know you've been out a few times with Merv, and you could probably vouch. He likes to get out there early. But the good thing about getting there early is there's not a whole lot of boat traffic there, right, Ken? And I don't know if you have anything else to add about these screenshots of what Merv has said so far.
No, the green light has definitely helped him out a lot. And yes, it is very early in the morning.
Cool. All right. So, Merv, I'm going to go to the next screen. What we're looking at here is a Navionics map just outside of Elm Hill Marina. And so, you can see like the darker lines is the river channel. One of the things I want to highlight for our users is that, you don't just go to a spot and fish, right, Merv? Once you get your bait, you're having to scan around and look and for the hybrids or stripers?
You may have to hit 5 or 6 or 7 spots to finally find the fish because they're pelagic. They have fins. They swim, they move. Where you caught them last night, you might go there tomorrow and have an empty lake looking at you. If you're looking at the left side of that map, see where the line goes, and there's a line coming from the center going to the left. That hump right there, if you go north to the next hump, that's what we call hump 69. That's a good spot to check. Another good spot to check is just before you get into Elm Hill Island there. If you're going like into Elm Hill Marina, you'll see the red buoys right there. Stay out in about 25, 30 foot of water. A lot of times they're in there. Far top middle of your screen, you'll see a yellow island up there. That's Goose Island. The north side and the west side of Goose Island, 22 to 30 foot of water, can hold tremendous numbers of hybrids, or it can hold none.
Yeah. So Merv, you mentioned a term called like a hump. And so, if people that are new to the channel and not familiar fishing with a hump is basically a high spot, right, surrounded by low water. It's exactly what it sounds like, correct? And you feel like sometimes those hybrid are around that area and kind of pin up those bait fish? Is that why you think they're there?
They will herd the bait fish up to the surface. And here's something that got us on fish today. We now have a lot of come on, what's that bird I was talking about earlier? Osprey. Thank you. My wife just told me. The ospreys put us on the fish today. We wasted an hour and a half looking where they have been coming up for the last month. They didn't ever show up, so we moved. And as we're going down the lake, we see the ospreys bombing the water. We go over there and hello, there we got the fish right there.
Yeah, so sometimes you don't have to have fancy electronics, right, Merv? You can just kind of pay attention to your surroundings. Sometimes those birds tell you where the bait and fish are.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of bait fish, I've got 2 additional screenshots here, and if you're looking at it, they look a little different. And so, for those folks that are not used to looking at like a monitor or fish graph and have seen your post, why don't you talk a little bit about what we're looking at in each screen?
Okay, on the left screen, you're looking at the bait fish gathering around my green light. A lot of those bait fish are just little bitty guys, 2 inches, new hatch. That's what we call a new hatch. Now, the screen on the right, that is a good group of hybrids. You can tell because the markings on a hybrid are going to be more like a football, where if you see the long, skinny line just to the left of that group, that's more like a gar. And you'll have a lot of gar mixed in with the hybrids because they are doing the same thing the hybrids doing, and that's chasing bait.
Nice.
And if you notice, let's talk about that thermocline a second. See that brown band at the bottom of the screen? That is a heavy thermocline. Your target fish can't go below that. A striper and a hybrid, they need dissolved oxygen to survive. There is no dissolved oxygen below that thermocline. And so your fish are crowded into the top 22 feet of water. And the bad thing is the water's warm. These fish, when you fight them, they fight to exhaustion. So when you catch one, if you're going to release them, I leave it in the net. And I put the net in the water and I move the fish back and forth. So I don't touch the fish. And I wait until they kick out of the net and they swim away on their own.
Nice.
Hey, Merv, tell them about the bait fish and how once you hook the bait fish up to a lure or to the hook, that you can't let it go below that thermocline either, because we were having trouble early on where they were dying all of our bait.
You said it perfect. You put that bait down into that thermocline and it's dead within seconds. Nice. So mark your line so you don't put it down more than 18 feet. And that way your bait will be above the thermocline and about where the fish are.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that
Ken brought up
thermocline, does that change during different seasons? So it's going to be different in the summer than it is in the fall, and then the other 4 seasons, or the other 2 seasons?
well, in the winter, there won't be a thermocline. The
Okay.
water's cold top to bottom, and we will catch a lot of our fish 35 feet deep. We'll troll Alabama rigs, and we'll put them down about 20 feet. And the fish will come up to them. But if we're jigging spoons and blade baits, yeah, we'll catch fish as deep as 35 feet.
Cool. Good question, Mike. What about you, Don and Alan? I'm not sure if you use y'all's electronic much, but do you have any questions on what we're looking at? And I'll start with Don. I know you fish a lot in the river, right, Don?
Yeah, I do a lot of the Stones River quite a bit on that end of the lake. On this, I guess this will be the south end of the lake is what I would call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the stripe and the gar would look so much different than a bass. Looking at electronics when I look at them.
Yeah, a fellow once told me, he's a bass fisherman. He says he looks for something that looks like a bump on a log. He says the fish are not big and long like a gar. They're not going to be big and have a big round signature like a hybrid. And they're going to be generally spaced. They're not going to be stacked up like crappie or white bass. They're going to be spaced apart. True? For the bass fisherman? I'm not a bass fisherman.
Yeah, that's very true, at least from my experience.
Yeah.
On this graph right here, you said that one of the longer fish is kind of like a gar. Is that what a catfish would look like also?
If he's big enough.
Oh, okay.
See, your average gar is going to be about 3 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
Today I caught a couple catfish that probably go 5-6 pounds, and they were, I'm guessing, 22 inches, something like that. Where gar is going to be a long, thin return. If you notice on my screen to the left, I have all of my lines in there. Those lines are 2 feet apart. This way I can tell how long a fish is. If he takes up 2.5 spaces, he's going to be 24 to 36 inches long. And so therefore I know, okay, he's too long to be a hybrid unless it's a monster. And if it's a monster, he'll show up as a monster. So that way, that's why I like to keep my lines on my graph most of the time.
Okay.
Some people don't. I do.
Hey, Merv, you want to make a plug for the screen on the left? I feel like that's a bigger graph than what most folks have these days, right?
Yeah, that's a 21-inch screen right there. There's 20 of them in the world. Okay, that's number 17. It's made by NBT Marine. It's a young fella out of Canada. He makes them and sells them. And when I saw them, I thought, okay. And I talked to the guy, and he says, yeah, we're only having a run of 20, the first ones, while we get all of the bugs worked out. So that's a 21-inch screen. It's an 86 series graph that feeds it. You need the HDMI output, which I have an 8612, which feeds that 21-inch screen, and I can operate either graph from either screen. I can operate my Garmin graph from that screen, and I can operate that screen from my Garmin. And all it does is it mirrors my 8612, just you see it a lot bigger. So when you're jigging for fish in the wintertime, it's handy because you can see, and Ken can vouch for this because he's got a couple of them on his boat, not the NBTs, but he's got a couple of Garmins. And you can see an 1/8 ounce spoon down 35 feet real easy.
Wow.
Nice. All right, Merv, let's see what I got on this next slide here.
Yeah, that's a really nice screen.
Yeah, so this is a good segue, right? So this is on the screen. This is probably a really good representation about the net and how it stays open for a while.
Do you have a picture of the Betts deep hole net? I know you do.
Yeah.
We looked at it a while ago.
Yeah.
So let's show that. There you go. That's the net. That 2-inch wide band all the way around the bottom keeps this net open like a parachute all the way down. You can see how many count the little spaces. It's probably about 12 feet there that you see that net is staying open, and that's in 21 foot of water. If you take a regular 8-foot net, 3/4 pound per foot, like you buy anywhere else, it's 16-foot diameter. When it hits the bottom, it's going to be closed up to about 4 to 5 feet in diameter. That's a regular net. The Betts deep hole, which is what you're looking at there, it will stay open 12 feet, and it covers a lot of territory. A couple of days ago, I was out, and I had a lot of bait, just like this, right below me. And I threw a regular net, a regular 8-foot radius, 16-foot diameter net. I threw it 3 times, and I came up with 5 little baits, 5 baits out of 3 casts. I took the Betts deep hole, and I threw it 4 times, and I had 80 baits. So right there, you know, if you're a live bait fisherman, you're going to be fishing for whatever. You need that net right there. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and effort trying to catch bait. And we have other guides out there that throw 6, 7 foot, 8-foot regular nets, and they're complaining, I can't catch bait, I can't catch bait. And I'll pull up beside them and I'll make 3 throws and I've got enough for the day. I actually give a lot of bait away. Yeah, I just have a laundry basket from Walmart that I shake my bait out of the net into there, because these baits, when they're captured, they're stressed, and they'll puke and they'll poop and they'll shed scales, and so that laundry basket has a lot of holes. And once I get the bait that I want, I'll just turn my trolling motor on and I'll move, half a mile an hour, 3 to 7/10, something like that. And I'll let all of this stuff flow through the basket. And so when I put them in my bait tank, they don't muck up the filters as quick. I mean, they're still going to mess up the filters, and you're going to have to clean the filters 2 or 3 times in a trip. But that right there lets them purge themselves. What you're looking at there is I made one throw. The screen you're looking on the left, that is a band of bait down there. I can't see how deep they are. They're probably about 19 feet, something like that. And I threw that net, and I came up with one throw, probably 200 baits. I mean, you look at that basket, and that's not all of them. I shook a bunch of them out before I put them in that basket. And then when I got ready to put those in my tank, I took a net and took a big scoop out and threw it away, because there's just too many baits in there. You'll overwhelm your bait tank.
Man, that's a good problem to have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when I have guides out there saying, man, I threw the net for 2 hours, couldn't catch bait. I went fishing with a guide myself. I went out with a guide this Sunday, and he threw a 9-foot net for an hour and a half trying to catch enough bait to go fishing on the river for stripers. And I'm not going to say anything, because this guy's a professional guide. He's been doing it for 10 years in this area, and he's very, very good. But his bait catching methods left a lot to be desired, I thought.
Merv, I looked up the nets, and I mean, they're not cheap compared to other nets, but I feel like it's worth it, right? And so I don't know if you remember the price, or prices of the other ones, but I much rather cast a net 1 or 2 times, get the bait fish that I need, than spend an hour trying to catch 30 bait fish.
Oh yes. Now, if you go to Amazon, that net will cost you $165. If you go to Bluff City Tackle, you can get that same net for $120. So it's $45 savings right there.
Yeah, and you get 2 gallons of gas with that.
Sir?
So you can get 2 gallons of gas with that $40 you save.
Yeah, ain't it? That's it. I always have 2 on the boat. Right now, I have a regular 8-foot net. It's just for emergencies, because I have a couple of those $165 nets stuck on the bottom, where you look down and you think you're looking at a school of bait fish, and what you're actually looking at is a crappie set.
Oh no!
And oh yeah, and so you throw it down there, and if they've got 2 or 3 or 4 concrete blocks of that, plus the wood, you don't get it back. And so yeah, I've lost one this year. I had one. I made 2 throws, a brand new net, and on the second throw, I got it hung up, and it's sleeping with the fishes right now. That hurts, but it's part of the game.
I really appreciate you talking about that. Everybody talks about how they catch the fish, but I guess for other people, maybe it's a matter of you don't know what you don't know. I've never heard anybody talk about the fact that you need a different kind of net to be effective in picking up, that bait like that. Everybody I've ever known, I don't do that for bait because I'm targeting bass most of the time, but the guys I know who do target it, as far as I know, they just use a regular net. I've never heard anybody say that before.
Yeah, and they will work their butts off compared to somebody that's using the Betts deep hole. It's a tool, and it's like any other tool. Some are better than others at what they do, and that thing works good. I actually switched from a 3/8 mesh net to a 1/2 inch mesh to let the smaller baits, the 3-inch baits, go through rather than have to pick them out of a 3/8 net, which you would do because they'd get caught in their gills. They'd get gilled in the net, and then you got to pull them out of there, waste your time. And so yeah, I went to a little bit bigger, and some folks go to a 5/8 mesh, but they're looking for bigger baits for the river for the stripers. I rarely fish stripers. I went out with the guide Sunday just because I wanted to go catch a striper. I hadn't done it for a while, so I wanted to see what his method is. And when I go to a strange place and a different thing that I don't know, I will hire a guide. Ken, tell them about our trip up on Dale Hollow.
And we went up there one night. That was a late night. We went up about 6 and stayed till about midnight with a guide. So it was a lot of fun. So we got another trip scheduled in the end of this month in Knoxville, Maryville, that me and Merv are going to go and do a guided trip.
Nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to hire a guide because I figure it's like that. Now here, the night Ken and I were doing the night fishing, he caught 3 fish before I ever caught a fish. And of course, I'm hearing about it. Ken is not the sort to let something like that go, unnoticed. And I'm thinking, okay, now, if I was a person who didn't know that the guide has given me the bait that he thinks I'm going to catch the fish with, so he gave Ken a worm because Ken's kind of wormy looking, and he gave me a brush hog, a baby brush hog. And like I say, Ken's got 3 fish before I ever caught my first one. But I have this thing that I tell clients. You don't guide the guide. You hire the guide, you're paying him for his expertise. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy gave me this bait because this is what works and this is what he thinks I'm going to catch the fish with. And he's right. I wound up catching my limit of largemouth bass that night, all on the same bait. I never switched all night. Ken, what'd you wind up catching? 4 smallmouth and a warmouth?
That was all I got. I didn't get any largemouth.
No, I caught the largemouth, and that's good because I told the guide, I said, hey, I want to take home a limit of largemouth because I love to eat them. That's my favorite fish to eat. So he says, hey, that's fine. If it's legal, take it home. So I did.
Hey, Merv, can I ask you who you used? I've always wanted to fish Dale Hollow. I never have. Who did you use, or can I ask that from your guy?
No, Denton. There you go, Denton Hummel. He's a good guide, and he'll chit-chat you up all night. This is something my striper guide this weekend didn't do. I mean, this guy wouldn't say shit if he had a mouthful. He just did not talk. And it's like, you can tell I'm a kind of a chatty sort. And so, I would ask him a question and I'd get a 2-letter answer, and that was it. There was no conversation. And as you can tell, I'm a brilliant conversationalist,
Very humble too.
You were quite
Yes, quite humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
if
Merv, I have a question about this screen.
Yes.
The basket that you've got there that you're keeping your bait fish in, do you just because you're a guide and you've got so many clients that you deal with on your boat at times, do you just use that as your bait tank, or do you have a bait tank on your boat that you actually extract those out of the tub and put them into the one on your boat?
If you will look at the picture, the left, and I'm holding 2 fish there, that
Yes.
round circular thing, that is a bait tank. You see it? It's actually a homemade tank. I've got another boat that's got a 50-gallon commercially made tank, but this guy had this one for sale cheap, and I had another boat I was setting up, and so I bought it, and it functions perfectly. I mean, when shad are stressed, if they're not handled properly and they don't have the right amount of oxygen, after a couple hours they get what's called red nose, and that means they're on their way out. They're dying. And you want your bait to be as lively and as frisky as possible so that it will entice the strike. So we have a Danco, which is an aerator. It pumps water through a venturi, and that sucks air through, and it mixes with the water, and it emulsifies the air, actually. It comes out in really, really super fine bubbles. And I make a concoction of chemicals that I put in the water in that bait tank, because it doesn't circulate with fresh water. The water that you put in the tank stays in the tank. It doesn't go anywhere. I don't know, do we want to, these guys don't fish live bait, so there's no need of going into the chemicals, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
I need
No,
to keep
no,
bait alive
we'll have
for
to get
6,
people
7
to
hours.
comment, Merv. Like I think if they wanna know more of the juice, they're gonna have to leave me a comment, like this video, because I'm spending some time doing all this on on my free time here. But this is what I love about chatting with Merv. It's like, he's a guide, and he charges money to do this stuff, but he gives away all his secrets and he talks about what he does, and so I really admire that. But again, Merv says, these fish move around, and just because you're catching them at one spot one day doesn't mean you're catching them at another. And so, and y'all heard Merv talk about hiring somebody. So yeah.
I'm not trying to drum up business here, guys. I'm retired. I have a pension. I have Social Security, and I have a gorgeous wife that works. So, if I get business, fine. If I don't, if I never do another guided trip in my life, I'm still going to be just fine.
You got me and Ken to count on to go out there.
You got
who? You got me and Ken.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
Well, and I'll plug Merv. If you ever see Merv and you see him out on the lake, usually there'll be other boats around him, and he's giving out either bait fish. During the winter, usually throws people the spoons and says, "Hey, try this." So he's real, like I said, he's got a wealth of knowledge. And that's what I like about it. He's always willing to help. And usually I'm on his boat, but if I'm not on his boat, usually I'll call him up and say, "Hey, where are you?" And usually he'll say, "Hey, come on over here. Just don't throw your lure on my boat." And he'll give you tips.
Yeah.
Say, "Hey, try this. Don't use that color." Or, "Hey, you got to use this para, this $12 lure." He loves a good $12 lure. I'm sitting over there, $4 lure, but he'll throw you one and say, "Hey, just throw it back to me when you're done," and stuff. So he's real helpful. I mean, I've been out with him many a times that he's given shad away, and people catch fish and they're just all excited after they leave.
Well, it's all about.
Merv,
You know,
can you tell us a little bit about your boat, about the boat you go out in? I mean, I'm a bass fisherman, so I'm out in my Ranger bass boat, but that's not really set up for striper fishing. So how's your boat set up for fishing for stripers?
I actually have an old deck boat. It's like a 1994 Bayliner Rendezvous. It's got a V6 IO. I have a Minn Kota 72-inch, 112-pound thrust Altera trolling motor. Got spot lock. It's got follow the contour and all that stuff. With the Altera, you can operate it with your cell phone, with a remote, with a foot pedal, or a graph. So you can operate that thing any way you want. I like it because if I have clients in the boat and they're between me and the trolling motor and it's time to move, I don't have to get them out of the way. I just hit a button and it stows. When I get to the next spot, I hit a button and it deploys.
So how many people comfortably can you get on your boat?
It says it's 9, capacity is 9. I would never put more than 5 customers because it gets crowded.
Right.
And it's just, it takes the fun out of it when you got to be, walking around, because it's a center console, and around the center console, the walkway is kind of narrow. It's 18 inches, something like that. And that's where everybody's going to stand.
Of course.
I have 8 rod holders on the boat. Wintertime, we troll. I just throw Alabama rigs out there and we troll, catch hybrids like that. If we're looking for white bass or hybrids, we're sitting on top of them with a jigging spoon, a blade bait, using a live scope, watching the bait right in front of the fish. And what's the other thing that I need to tell them about, Ken? I'm sitting there, I'm drawing a blank. As far as fishing in the wintertime.
Do you have any plastic covers over your boat in the winter to keep some of the wind off you?
Nope.
No.
You got to be tough if you're going to fish with me.
But it's worth it, though.
It is. I've got Bimini tops, but when you've got a 6-pound fish and he's running amok, and you got to go from one end of the 20-foot boat to the other end, if you've got a Bimini top, you're putting that rod through, all of the mounts and all that stuff. So, yeah, you just got to be tough for stupid fish with me.
Dress for it. That's all.
What's that?
I said just dress for it.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yep.
I don't seem to mind the cold near as much when I'm catching fish.
Right.
When
Exactly.
I'm catching fish, it's awfully cold, but if I'm catching fish, I'm okay with the cold.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. Has anybody got any questions about hybrids, how to catch them, how to find them? If in the wintertime, you follow the birds. We carry binoculars, and when you see the birds, I'm talking not the loons. Loons will be on the water, but the terns and the seagulls, when they start doing a tornado thing, you want to get over there because the fish are right below them. You don't get much topwater action, but they'll push the bait up to the top, and the loons will be there. And we get loons probably starting in November, and same way with the tern. A tern is a seagull, but it's just small.
So when you see that in the wintertime, are you going over there and trolling, or are you just throwing a spoon in that general vicinity? Murph?
Generally, we're going to throw a spoon, an A rig, an Alabama rig. Being a bass fisherman, I know you know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
We use 3-inch Charlie Brewer sliders. Since we can only use 3 hooks, we'll have 3. I make my own jig heads. They're 7/16 out. I use a 3/0 mustad hook, very strong. We catch 35, 40-pound stripers over here in Drake's Creek in the wintertime, and on 3-inch swim baits. Yeah, I got a couple of stories about catching stripers out there on A rigs that another striper guy couldn't. He called me up and he goes, "What the hell did you do to catch 18 striper and hybrids in one morning?" I said, "Well, come on out with me tomorrow and I'll show you." Now, this guy had been striper fishing for years, and he said he'd never heard of fishing with a A rig. And in the wintertime, that's a lot of what we do. I'll tell you how you do it. You get the depth. What's the name of that line? Depth Hunter. It's Spider Wire. I think it's Depth Hunter Pro, and it's metered. Every 25 feet, it changes colors. You've got 4 colors: blue, yellow, green, and orange. And every 5 feet, there's a hash mark, black and white hash mark. So you can put your bait back the exact same distance every time, just by watching the colors on your line. It's not weighted. We just take the 3 7/16 ounce jig heads and put the sliders on them. I put them back 75 feet and I troll 1.2 miles an hour. And you will catch hybrids all day if you're in them. If you're not there, you're not going to catch them. Yeah, when you have 8 rods jumping at the same time, or 6 rods jumping, and these fish, when you get a 5, 6, 7 pound hybrid, you're not going to control it. He's just going to go where he wants to for the first couple 3 minutes, and you're going to wind up with some of the god awfulest messes you ever seen. But it's fun, you know. Rods are screaming all over the boat, and Johnny's been there. He's seen it. He's done it.
Hey, Merv. I know it's probably getting closer to dinner time, and I don't want to take up all your time. But let's spend like 5 or 7 more minutes talking a little bit about the different boat ramps on the north side of the lake. So let me share the screen here real quick. You know, for the folks that are not familiar, you know, with the lake, maybe we can kind of start over here by the dam. I think that's what I'm showing. And so I have them. I have these boxes numbered 1 through 4. So number 1 is by Nashville Shores Marina. You said that's a pretty nice boat ramp, right?
Yeah. Ramp, $8 per launch. It's a day fee. Every time you launch, you pay $8.
Gotcha.
Number 2 is not a public launch. It's more like a beach. There's no boat launch for people. Number 3 is that is TWRA and Metro launch. We're not allowed to use that. Number 4, what's that say? Oh, that's the old Hickory Boulevard.
Yep.
That is closed. So out of the 4 ramps you're showing, only 1 is a viable ramp.
Okay, good deal.
If they're on the north end, you want to go to Cook's Recreation Area. It's 12230 Old Hickory Boulevard. You can Google it and get the address. You have 7 Points boat ramp. You have Vivert Creek boat ramp. At the end of Elm Hill RV Resort, there is an $8 paid gate that you slide your debit card through, and the gate opens up and lets you in. In the summertime, it's just totally packed in there. I'm done.
Yeah. Real quick, Merv, let me go back to this other slide. If they're like driving a boat and navigating around here, is there anything in particular they need to watch out for? I feel like at Summer Pool it's pretty safe, right? And in the spots that it is kind of sketchy, there's buoys up there.
I don't think there's very many spots on the from Hobson Pike Bridge going upstream downstream. I don't think there's any place that I would call dangerous. That happens when you get down into the Fate Sanders area.
Gotcha.
Long Hunter.
Yep.
All right, so that's one half of over there by the dam, and then Merv, this spot right here is kind of close to like Bear Island, Anderson Beach. You know, the first boat ramp I think is number 1 over there. I think that's what is that one? Across the street from Anderson Campground. That's Hamilton Creek, right?
Yeah, that should be Hamilton Creek. Yeah,
that's a pretty good boat ramp.
Well, it's a good ramp, but they don't have a dock. That's the only bad thing about it. It's a very good ramp, good parking lot, but no dock. Number 2, that's an abandoned ramp. That's no longer in service. It's closed off. That's Anderson Park. Yeah. Now at the other end of Anderson Park, there is a good boat ramp.
Okay.
But that one that you've got squared out there, that's closed off.
Gotcha. All right, so while we're on this screen, you see Bear Island and Raccoon Island. It's August right now. If somebody was targeting hybrids, what are like 1 or 2 high percentage areas they should look at? Okay,
you see the bear's head, and it's 2 feet.
Yep.
And the little bump in the back, we call that the bear's butt.
Huh.
It's a very long point that comes out. You get out there in about 25 feet of water. They can be there, or they may or may not be. Directly between Bear and Raccoon, 25 foot of water, that can be very good. Hamilton Point, which is all the way to your left, where you've got the square drawn the farthest. If you follow that point out, that should be good this time of the year. It wasn't today, but it can be. So those are spots. You basically just have to go to look at what we call Cook's Point, Bear's Butt, Hamilton Point, Suggs Creek. I've got like about 9 places that I just go look. Point 4.5, which is the north end of Hole in the Wall Island.
Yeah, nice. All right, we got about 3 minutes left on the recording here. I just want to give Don and Alan an opportunity to ask any questions they have before we drop.
No, I think Merv, especially, you've done a great job of explaining that, and I really appreciate you being willing to give really good information about places for people to look. I find sometimes people are really secretive. They're so worried that somebody will come along and find their favorite spot. I tell people anytime they want to know, where'd you get that fish? I think Johnny knows already. I'll send you a copy of the map. I'll say right here, this spot, and this is how I caught him, because I want everybody to be successful. So I appreciate your information.
Well, I feel the same way.
Who was asking about fishing on Old Hickory when we first started today?
I believe Don does that.
I've fished Old Hickory twice, and I've just not had any luck. It's been really tough both times I've gone up there and tried to fish it.
Well, sometime you want to go, get hold of Johnny and get my number. And I live in Gallatin. I live right by Station Camp. I go out of Bull Creek quite a bit, or out of Station Camp or Cage's Bend. You want to get out sometime? I'll be happy to share some spots with you.
Man, I'd love that. I would really enjoy it. I'd love to do it. I'll take you up on it.
Anytime.
Now,
I've fished that place about 6 times this year. I'm part of a senior, they call it a seniors bass fishing club. I'm sure some of you guys probably heard of it, but I think we've got our last 2 coming up in October, and that's the end of it. But I'm struggling when I'm out there on Old Hickory myself with large and small.
All right, so
get hold of Johnny, give my number. I mean, I'll be happy to share with what I've learned over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I don't know, one of the guys on Facebook has been fishing out there for a while, and it seems like he always catches them, but I don't think he's going to go back out there because he's got his Cadillac converter cut off, and so maybe I can get that guy on and share some tips. And I know the guy from Torrent Lures, and I think he fishes out there a lot. So, again, if you're watching the video and you're still here, just let me know something in the comment. Again, like it, engage it, so I can do some more of these videos for you all. So, I think that's all I got for tonight, guys. I mean, I really appreciate you all joining. I know this is last minute. Merv getting up all the juice. I'll try to get this cleaned up, send it out with the rest of the guys. So,
Thank you,
I
everybody.
enjoyed it.
Good
All right.
fishing.
All right, we'll see y'all.
Take it, man.
Good luck, guys.
Tight lines.
Take care.